Welcome to Season 1, Episode 9 of The Orange Juice, the podcast all about Orange, its people and its stories. Today, a man I've been really looking forward to having on the podcast, Brad Hammond, Director of the Orange Regional Gallery. Morning, Brad.
Morning, Kyle. Thanks. It's great to be here with you.
I noticed in the sound check, you introduced yourself in our little soundbite as Bradley Hammond. Do you like Bradley or do you like Brad, or is it only your mum that calls you Bradley?
Yeah, that's a terrifying moment. No, I'm happy with either.
Okay, I've always known you as Brad. We'll start with our McGrath Minute. They're one of the generous sponsors of the podcast. So we jump in and we do a few little questions about Orange and how you relate to it. The first one is coffee or wine?
Definitely coffee. Every morning I wake up and I have 2 coffees with Angela. We sit outside on the bench and look at the garden, and we normally think we'll have one and then we end up having 2. And it's a great part of the day.
What a great way to start the day.
Yeah, I love it.
We're spoilt for choice in Orange with eateries, but I'm sure, like myself, you probably fluctuate between your favourite. What's your favourite eatery at the moment?
I love Mai Til Rasoi, the Indian restaurant up on Summer Street. I love a good Indian restaurant, and India has special memories for me. But Sanjay does such beautiful food, and it's a real go-to. I love it.
What about an Orange memory, something that always sticks in your mind when you're away from Orange? What brings you back? What's an Orange memory that's your favourite?
Well, apart from family memories, there are 2 parts really. The one is the natural environment. I love walking around Ganabala, Mount Canobolas. I think it's a very special place. And then other parts are related to the gallery and exhibition openings that we've had in our new extension space, and some of the great people we've had the opportunity to work with. Those are real highlights for me.
What about, what are you reading at the moment? I'd imagine you to be well read.
I struggle to read sometimes. We just get so busy. But I've got a great collection of art books and I keep pulling them out. And one I return to, especially lately, is a collection of essays and works by an American painter called Alice Neel. She was just such a wonderful painter who painted portraits of people in New York. And when the rest of the world was working in abstraction, she was blazing away this trail of these really intense psychological portraits.
Okay.
She's an incredible artist, and really very late in life, people came to recognize her brilliance.
What was the era that she worked in? Is she current or was she?
Oh no, she died, I think, in the late 80s, but she was working through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and through that whole period, she was largely unknown, and then. But she did some incredible portraits. Like, she was one of the few people who Andy Warhol let paint her portrait.
Wow.
And after he was shot, he accepted to sit for her for a portrait. So one of my all-time favorite portraits is of Andy Warhol all bandaged up with his eyes closed. It's the most incredible painting.
Wow, I'm going to go and look that one up.
I'll send it to you. Yeah.
And I wonder, would she have perhaps been part of the inspiration for the famous Instagram Humans of New York, which is a photographic portrait.
Yeah, well, I love this way that art could get into the psychology of the sitter. You know, there's pictures of people and then there's psychological portraits. And to me, a great portrait is a psychological insight. And she was a leading artist in the 20th century who understood that. She often said she would have made a great psychologist rather than a painter, but her paintings feel like an insight into someone's inner life.
Probably quite timely with what's going on in America for you to be picking that one up again and looking at it.
Yeah, I think the art has such a role to play at times of any time, but times of turmoil in a culture. Art has it helps people to heal, to make sense of things, to connect with each other very deeply, and I think it stands the test of time. We make sense of things often after they've happened, and it's thanks to the arts that we can look back and get access into what happened at that period.
I couldn't agree more, and we'll unpack that a bit later. A local champion, Brad, there are so many, we've all got a few, but if you had to nail down a local champion for the podcast, a local hero, who would it be?
It is very difficult to narrow down to one. I mean, artists generally, I love working with artists, but also somebody who's been a huge support to the gallery over the last few years, and I think also personally just because of all of the work that we've been doing around moving the gallery into a new chapter, it would be Kathy Snowball, who's the current president of the Friends of the Gallery. She has been tireless in supporting us, and she's got great ideas, she's got great energy, and it's really thanks to her. You know, we worked together on fundraising for the gallery extension all through COVID, and she was, along with Maria Edwards, And Kathy just had incredible ideas and energy and made these connections in our community so meaningful. And I really feel very grateful to her.
Yeah, she's a fabulous choice. She's an absolute mover and a shaker in that field, isn't she?
Yeah.
That's great, Brad. And we're going to come back to all of that stuff about Friends of the Gallery a little bit later. But like so many people that are influential in our community, we see you either in the paper or talking to Gilly on the radio or on this podcast as an arts leader. But Brad Hammond, the person, born in Zimbabwe, grew up in South Africa right at the end of apartheid. I'm guessing your childhood was a little more interesting than mine growing up in Bathurst, New South Wales.
I don't know about more interesting, but certainly a little different, probably. South Africa was, I love South Africa, and I love visiting South Africa again. I have family there. But growing up then was very intensive for everyone who was there. And it was a time really where it was difficult to make sense of things sometimes. It was a dictatorship. And so through that experience, I think it gave me a lot in my life about what the importance of arts are and what they can bring to communities. But also it's a place of incredible people. And I feel very fond of South Africa as a place and the people there.
Can you enlighten us a little bit more about the school system growing up in a country like that? Obviously a very different racial profile to what we would have had here in Australia growing up in the 80s. You and I are a similar vintage. I grew up in a very vanilla, very Caucasian environment, and yours would have been very different.
It was very different, but really the powers that be under apartheid wanted to keep everyone separate, as everyone knows. And they did their level best to do that. And it reached into all corners of our lives. So education was a great place for them to indoctrinate. And so really, it's funny what you get used to and what's normal. You grow up in a situation like that and it's normalized. But then, as I was saying just before when we met, like my life has been in two halves essentially. There's been a first chapter. And it's really in this second chapter that I then have the opportunity to look back and make sense of the first chapter. And it fascinates me how one's own sense of one's history changes, from different perspectives or with new experiences. So now I come to understand what we were experiencing. But at the time you are in your reality and you're making sense of it. But there was always a sense of unease, and you knew that something was drastically wrong in
something
culture
was amiss
when you could see it.
Yeah.
But it was really, I think, in many ways, great friends, my family, and the arts that saved my mind. Essentially from what the system was trying to do to us. So it was very powerful.
That's fascinating for someone like me that hasn't grown up with that kind of thing as a norm. Your schooling, your social outings. I mean, I guess it's a form of indoctrination, right? And kids don't have a choice in that. So you're raised with just a set of rules. And the awakening came through art, you'd probably be one of the least racist people I know. So how do you come out of a culture like that and then discover friends of colour, and how does that all work?
I think really people are taught to hate. That's one thing I know from that whole experience. And so if you're lucky enough to have the right people around you, then you can make sense of it. So I was very fortunate to have a great family and also wonderful grandparents. And so, we would often go, they lived in an area at the time was called Zululand or KwaZulu. And so they lived remotely in remote areas, and we'd often go there on school holidays. And it was just such an adventure. And it was a kind of safe haven for us to go there in the school holidays. And also, I was just lucky to be surrounded by people with open minds who questioned it. And then later, when I went to study visual arts, or fine arts as we called it then, I met just wonderful people, great lecturers, great friends. And, that art then was really this kind of cultural way of people making sense of what was going on.
And that's a theme through, the visual arts or any form of art, isn't it? That it has no creed or colour. It does it unites, it brings people together. It nearly always does. I can't think of a time when art has ever set to divide. If it has, it's probably failed.
Well, usually when it's used to do that, it's propaganda. So
True.
the arts are used as propaganda, but yeah.
Seeing a bit of that lately. Not in Australia,
Absolutely,
but
yeah.
this is a timely chat, when we're talking about dictators and we're talking about a shift in the global ecosystem. Here in Orange, obviously, not too affected at the moment, but it's really nice to hear your story. So how long were you in South Africa? When did you emigrate?
So I was there until 2001, and I was fortunate enough to win a contemporary art award, which took me on a 6-month residency to Paris, to a studio complex called the Cité des Arts, which is a complex of studios given to governments and countries all around the world by the French government. And the initiative was really to draw people back to Paris after the Second World War, because the arts and culture fled, essentially. So to draw that back, there's this fabulous place right on the Seine, and I was lucky enough to receive that studio. And so that's where I met Angela, my wife. We were hanging out the window of the studios, and she was at the same time looking over the street. And
I didn't realise you met Angela in Paris.
Yeah, we were living in the same building, essentially. She was there through the Australia Council, and that's where we met. And then my French went downhill.
Okay, so if you hadn't met an Aussie, you may not have come here at all. You might have been very happy in Europe.
I had other plans, but then when we met, it felt like we were picking up from where we left off, and we just had a great time.
How fantastic. Well, lucky us that you met an Aussie and we got to have you here in Orange.
Thanks.
How long have you been in Orange now?
Well, on and off in the Central West since 2001, but we've lived in Bathurst for some time because I used to work at Bathurst Regional Gallery, but really in this area since I arrived.
That's fantastic. Our kids went to school together at Nashdale Public, and I've known you and Angela socially, but I did not realise that's really what brought you here. And I think a lot of people would be interested to also know about your journey as an artist before an art administrator, because a lot of people probably just think of you as an arts administrator. But so tell us about what was your wheelhouse when you came up through the ranks as an artist? What was your speciality?
Well, I was always interested in drawing and painting because when I was a little kid, we had this series of Time Life art books, and that was really my introduction to the world of art. And my mother was great. She was a great lover of art. She is a great lover of art, and she would show me things. She taught me to draw, and then I used to page for these books. I just loved them, and they were on all these different artists. So I guess I fell in love with it at a very early age, and then when I was in primary school, I had a friend whose brother was a punk, and that their house was largely unattended, and then they just did murals all over the house, And so I saw him, and I was like really inspired. I thought, this is great, This is someone.
Yeah.
He was such a great. Both of them were, but he was so great at drawing, and he was. They sort of introduced me to all kinds of music that I'd never experienced, and then horror movies, and metal, and then these great murals. So I got really interested, and he was going to an art school. So then I thought, I want to go to this art school, And then fortunately, my parents said yes. So I went for my high school. I went to an art school. And
in Johannesburg?
Yeah, in Johannesburg. And it was a rare thing. It was a real privilege to be able to go there.
Absolutely. You'd be a small percentage of people going to art school, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd never heard of this place, and suddenly my world opened up because my friend's brother was going there, and I was like, I just knew then that's what I wanted to do. So then I decided I wanted to study it. So I went to university and I studied it, and I had a great fortune of having some brilliant and amazing lecturers, and being surrounded as well by other artists who were working at that time, and just seeing how they were working was so inspiring. So I was working with painting, and I was making film as well. So I was working in video, and so that's I was then starting to exhibit, and then that's when that award came up, and everything changed.
So really, it's been your whole life, the visual arts. There was nothing really between school and going to art school. There was no other career that you explored.
It was always at the center of my life, and I have this passion for making, and working with materials and art materials. And I think it's very important. It's not a requirement, and people have different ways. But for me, in my role now as a gallery director, the making of art and how that actually works is something which really informs the way I work with artists.
The process.
Yeah, I think very often there's what we call material thinking, which is working with materials and making meaning from the materials. It's a bit like jamming or something, and then it emerges. So I think in some sense that's given me the ability to trust artists and their process. And so one of the ways we like to work with artists is leave that creative process as open as long as possible, and also create the conditions, when we work with artists at the gallery, create the conditions for the development of new work. So we really, we trust, and then we create the space.
And you asked me earlier, do I still get time to play as much music as I used to? Of course I don't. Life moves on. Do you still get time to make art?
I look, not as much as I used to, and I have to kind of get back into that space of making. But I've come to view making art as a kind of medicine. And I think, like with many things, the capitalist economy wants to reduce everything to a product.
Yep.
And so I think many people who don't necessarily exhibit in a commercial space or whatever then make this assumption that they're not artists or they're not the real thing because there's not a commercial side. I think it's sad that happens, and I really, in my own life even, it's just that idea that it's a kind of nourishment and a different way of seeing. So through making, we see differently. So that's, if you just go out into the countryside, say, and draw, you'll notice things that you just wouldn't have seen otherwise because of the mode of connection that so things get channeled through the process of making. In a way, your experience gets filtered through and then expressed in a new form. So it's like a combination of the mind and the place or whatever the experience is.
That's absolutely wonderful. I'm really interested in what you said about that capitalism side of the art world. It's something I don't understand. I love visual art. I did 3-unit art at school, but then I unfortunately left it all behind. I wasn't anywhere near as talented as you and people that pursue it as a career. In the music industry, we definitely find that complete capitalisation of, and the manufactured pop idols and the art that is pushed at you is very, very controlled. Whereas probably some of the best music ever made will never be heard and was made in bedrooms all around the world by people who'll never be discovered. Art would be the same, right? But is the machine as big and nasty as it is in the music industry, or is it a little easier to navigate for artists?
I think it's rare that it's nasty, and very often many artists can survive as artists because of it. So I think it's got its real merit. It's more just that the meaning should come first and the making comes first, rather than the flip side, which is make products.
Yeah.
You make. I think there was a year 4 student who came to the gallery one day, and this is a few years back, but I was taking that particular session and I asked all the kids, what is art? What is it for? And they had great answers like art is for entertainment, art's for fun, art's to express your feelings. And then later in the session, this one little guy, he'd been thinking about it, and he shot up his head. We'd all moved on. He shot up his hand. He said, I know what art is. And I was like, okay, what is it? And he said, art is what ideas and feelings look like.
Wow. That's pretty inspired for a 9-year-old kid.
I can't add or take anything away from that. It's perfect. And so I'm grateful to him. I can't remember exactly who he was, but I always come back to that. And I was like, that's as clear as as you can put it, really. And that's the magic of it, and it's open. And I believe that it's there for everyone. It's very important that, there's people who become very skilled at it and can sell it. And I think that's wonderful. And I love working with that side of things. But then also, like this exhibition that we have on at the moment, the Here Now exhibition, it's open to everyone in the Central West. Many people exhibiting for their very first time. And I love that they feel that the gallery is as much a place to see great exhibitions, but as it is a place to express themselves and be seen, and to be able to share what it is that they make. And I'm always amazed how many people out there are making, so that's a real privilege to be able to support those artists.
Maybe let's move on to that a little bit, because I think there are many people in Orange who wouldn't be aware of just the depth and breadth of the local artists that we have here, the amazing local artists we have, just like we have amazing local musicians. The gallery obviously sits in this beautiful new arts precinct with the conservatorium going in. It's an exciting time in Orange. It's been a long time coming, and you've been a big part of that. Tell us where the gallery sits now with the upgrades that have happened. I know that there's been major upgrades to the gallery that have enabled us to have world-class artworks that we weren't able to have before because of lighting and humidity control and stuff like that. Is that right?
Yeah, well, there's a few sides to that. So Orange Regional Gallery has a wonderful collection of Australian art. We have really exceptional pieces that were donated to the City of Orange by Mary Turner back in the 80s. And it's thanks to her that through that donation, the gallery was built. But part of that was we didn't necessarily have good storage space. And at the time, that wasn't really the way things were done. But this collection has grown and grown over the years. And so part of the reason to extend the gallery was to create new storage for this wonderful collection that was really nurtured by Alan Sicily and people before I was there. And then the other part of that was then to create new connection space as well as exhibition space. So by creating this extension, we are now able to show that collection a lot more of the time. So it becomes a source of community pride. Okay. And so there's a lot of education that we'd like to do around that to celebrate that collection. But as you mentioned, this new space, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second, what it offers, but it's brought to us some really exciting exhibitions, and it's developed and made possible new partnerships that we have with the Art Gallery of New South Wales, the National Gallery, and also some international organisations like Messams, who brought the fabulous Lawrence Edwards exhibition of bronzes a few years ago. So really building that space has made us a site in the Central West where some world-class content can come to the region. So one of the highlights of my experience working in galleries was working with Sam Marshall, the architect. And what we wanted was a very simple space where you could fully control daylight. And so he designed this brilliant system for us where we can, on our phones, control the natural light that falls in the space. And the reason for that, it's similar to acoustics in a way. Artists are making their work in daylight, often in studios with natural light. And then artwork goes to galleries and it gets in a completely different artificial light.
Of course, it changes the white balance, it changes the colour.
Yeah. We all know how hard it is to get a single paint swatch right from Bunnings. Right?
Correct.
So that's happening. All the little decisions that a painter, for example, is making all get radically shifted in a different situation. So part of the criteria for that exhibition space was to create a space where we can meet the conditions of the making of the artwork. And part of that has brought some really exciting painters and other artists to us, but we can also darken that space down completely and show projection multimedia works like we did with the William Kentridge exhibition a couple of years ago, thanks to the Art Gallery of New South Wales. But so those two facets, and then alongside that we have this little gallery theatre which we love, where we can have artist discussions, we can screen documentaries, like you guys made an amazing documentary for us on Jack Davies. And so that part of the audience being able to come in and feel like they're meeting the artist,
yes,
or watching them work. It's fascinating for people to watch how artists actually make things. So we like to celebrate that and give people the access. Accessibility is really key. So I love it when someone comes into the gallery, their friends have brought them, they didn't really want to come. They go into the little theatre and they come out going, did you know that bronze is made from,
Yeah, that's right.
and then they're like taking their friends around and showing them how the sculpture's made or whatever, because that inclusivity, education, connection is something I think is really important for us as regional galleries to offer.
And it sparks inspiration in kids particularly, when they see a process and a process of art being made, whether it's a visual art or poetry or music, you see that creativity spark happen there, and that can be carried on.
It's interesting you mentioned Spark, because that's the title of a project that we have every year between the museum and the galleries. The museum are doing amazing work as well. And we partner with them every year on the Spark initiative, which we work with Kylie Toberty and the Spark network of primary schools. Part of the idea of this, and Cecily and our team does an amazing job of this, is to invite children, primary school children from around the region, to make an element of a larger whole. So, for example, one year we asked them to do self-portraits, and then we made a crowd of all the self-portraits. Or they built a building that was important to them.
Isn't that great?
We built a city,
Yeah.
So I love this idea. They're all participating, but also they then can come to their gallery and see themselves reflected, that their expression is valued. And so I think that's really important for the next generation to see their work and know that this is their place. And then that it breaks down the sense of elitism or hierarchy, or this is not my place. It's everyone's.
We spoke earlier about art having no creed or colour, and can you tell us a bit about you've got a migrant and refugee program working alongside in the gallery?
Yes, we've been very fortunate to receive funding from Museums and Galleries New South Wales to run what's called the Connecting to Place program. So Cecily, who I mentioned, and we work also with our team of artist educators, and they work also with Jill Nicol, who's been advising us on the project, and then we've been working more broadly with Council and with TAFE for people who are studying English as a second language and the migrant and refugee community.
Because we're becoming wonderfully multicultural in Orange.
Yeah, and we want them to feel that the gallery is their place, and so. Again, they're coming, they're looking at work, but they're being encouraged to speak of their experience when looking at artwork, to make work in the gallery that reflects on their own experience, and then to share that. And then we're working towards a shared artwork that we hope to exhibit as well from all of them. So that's, that connection, and the connection of art across language barriers is a wonderful thing. So it's a bit like music in that way. You can really reach right beyond the things that divide us and find the human or the shared connection.
Absolutely wonderful. And look, a couple of things I'd love to cover off on before we finish. Two organisations that again sit alongside the gallery, the Friends of the Gallery and ORAF. So to my understanding, ORAF support local artists solely, right? So there's scholarships for local artists, and then the Friends of the Gallery are all volunteers. I mean, we see this network of people around you and your team. Can you explain how that all works?
Well, I think you put your finger on something very important there about the network. I have this wonderful privilege to work with an amazing team at the gallery. Every one of them is so brilliant at what they do. And then the extension of that is then the community of volunteers around us through the Friends of the Gallery, who've been there right since the beginning of the gallery. Yep. And they support us at all of our openings and raise funds. And then we have this wonderful opportunity to purchase works for the collection through the money that they raise. And they come up with such great ideas, and they continually surprise me with their energy and new ideas year after year.
So it's a real symbiosis in a way, that it's adding to our amazing collection through all this energy.
Yeah, I mean, it's so great when we purchase something really exciting. Like recently, we just bought a Lloyd Rees painting that he did in Orange.
Absolutely. I mean, that's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like this little gem, and that everything's integrated. There's a whole community behind everything we do, and all of that support. And then to see it manifest in those ways is very exciting, and know that it then belongs to the people of Orange to celebrate into the future.
Do we have any Tim Storia?
We have a Tim Storia sculpture of his horse called Tully. I think it was his horse when he was growing up. So it's a kind of smaller than life-size bronze sculpture. So he's not that well known for his sculpture. You have a connection with Tim Storia.
Fun fact, when he lived in Bathurst, I worked with a mate who had the contract to do his garden. And I was working on his garden a couple of days a week for quite a while. And just incredible. I believe he had a portion of Brett Whiteley's ashes sprinkled in a magnolia grove there. That I'm going back away, so I'm hoping I'm right about that. But they were certainly very close friends. It was an incredible garden, and to see him sitting there working alongside us, raking leaves or pruning or whatever, was quite incredible. He's one hell of an artist and a lovely bloke.
Yeah, amazing artist, and really
and grew up in Wellington.
That's right.
He's a country boy. Yeah.
He's from around here. And, like many of the artists that we work with, the moment you see a Tim Storia, for example, you recognize it immediately as his own personal visual language. And I think many of the artists we work with have that quality, that you instantly, that's their mode or their kind of channel. That really fascinates me, how people find their own language that way.
Well, it certainly feels like we're in a really good place and time in the arts at the moment in Orange anyway, Brad.
We sure are.
Bite Riot Orchards is proudly owned by the Hall family, third-generation growers here in Orange. From crisp, juicy apples to the sweetest summer cherries, Bite Riot produce isn't just enjoyed locally. It's exported across the world and featured in leading supermarkets like Harris Farm Markets. It's more than just fruit, it's family innovation and a commitment to showcasing the best growers from the Orange region. Bite Riot, proudly grown in Orange, shared with the world.
Another exciting week in Orange, Brad. Zest Fest is this weekend, and you're part of council. You're obviously not part of that arm of council, but I'm a muso all my life, and I'm really chuffed to see a local stage this year at Zest Fest. That's been a really good addition to what was already a great festival. So Zest Fest on Saturday, are you going?
I'd like to, yeah. And I think also it's just great council support for the arts, and that this is such a great initiative. I think it's the second year, isn't it?
That's right, and it's already expanding. Speaking of festivals, we had Fem Hawke on the podcast last week, and it was really interesting to hear about the birth of Food Week and Wine Week sort of morphed out of all of that energy that those people had, and it now runs for 2 weeks. Like, Winefest is still going, so still plenty of events on. I'm not going to single anyone out, but they're still going this week. Winefest is great. The wine festival.
Yeah, it's a great sort of balance to Food Week at the first part of the year.
Yeah,
it's a lovely festival. It's fantastic.
So that continues until Sunday. This one, I didn't pick this one just because I had the arts guy on, but Mortimer's Wines are having a watercolour workshop on Saturday with the acclaimed watercolour artist Andrew Duffin. So it's really nice to see. I love when you see the wineries and the other tourism businesses in town morph into other stuff like music and art as well. It's nice, yeah?
Yeah, there's great opportunities there for kind of synergy, and also watercolour in the landscape's not easy, so it's great to get teaching from someone so accomplished.
Did you learn watercolour in art school?
I kind of taught myself, really. But I did a little bit, but I do work with it now, and it's very unforgiving, but also exciting.
It's one of the most difficult things to master.
Yeah, you can't cover up your tracks.
That's right.
So it's a tightrope walk, and that's what's exhilarating about it.
Fantastic. Well, that's on Saturday. Mr. Perfect are hosting their men's barbecue in Cook Park again this Sunday. They do that. I think they do that monthly, or it's regularly anyway. Great organisation that connects men. It has an underlying theme of men's mental health and just connecting blokes over a barbecue, and they can stand there from 11:30 to 2:30. And chat to friends, new and old. Mr. Perfect, I know Phil Donato has often been right behind this one. So that's a really good thing for blokes on Sunday. How cool is this one? Makes me feel a little old though. The Rocky Horror Picture Show is 50 this year. Just a little bit younger than us. Just a tad.
I remember
At least we were babies when it came out. We weren't like in high school or something.
Yeah. Did you watch it as a baby?
I felt like a baby. I was probably 12. The 50th anniversary of Rocky Horror, the cinema is hosting a screening of it on Friday where you can dress up like your favourite character.
Great.
And that has some good options. And last but not least, this Thursday at Canobolas Dance Hall, handpicked band doing Dragon and Men at Work, 2 Aussie classics. So another big week in Orange, Brad.
Fantastic.
It's been so good to have you on the podcast. I've been really looking forward to you coming on and sharing all things arts. I think we're all a little more enlightened about just how lucky we are in this city to have not only the resource, which is now world class, but the people behind the resource, and your team and the teams that sit alongside you, the volunteers, the precinct that is happening now with the conservatorium, which is obviously dear to my heart. It's a good time to be an artist in Orange.
Well, thanks so much for having me on, and also thanks to you for your support for the gallery and our exhibitions. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in, Brad.
Thanks.
So for all of you community groups, schools, businesses, and any other organisation that thinks it has a piece of newsworthy news for the Orange Juice, send us an email, news@theorangejuice.com.au. Cheers.